playing with his thumbs. And I think there's gotta be checked in all directions. There has been a lot of issues, like, I'm gonna.
Yeah, but
Right, but sometimes they have breaks or schedule.
yeah, they could be
No,
on
no,
a
no,
scheduled
I'm not
recovery
saying
time.
about the breaks of this, but I understand what you're good, you're right about that, but the concern is, if a bus is missing, should there be another bus let it leave like 5 minutes ahead of schedule, so at least gives a leeway space, so there's no humongous gaps? There are gaps lately.
There are gaps.
There are major gaps, and I don't wanna say what happens, Monday.
But you may be talking about a union issue, Chris, that they have to have so much break time
Exactly,
and rest time and
exactly.
Yeah, no.
But
That's an issue.
we don't get
Or
buses.
somebody took a 10-minute
Yeah, I know.
comfort break
No,
in the
no, I
middle of
understand
their
the
route.
5 minutes, 10 minutes, they have to go to the bathroom, that I
And they have,
understand.
that's in their
So,
contract.
so that's
They would do that.
actually a topic for a future speaker, which is the directions when there are gaps like Edith and you are discussing. What instructions are the remaining or the next group of drivers, operators given relative to that? Does the union contract allow, in a circumstance where there has been an extraordinary gap in service, to shorten a break and then take the bus out?
They do sometimes shorten them, but
That's something we should know.
we should, I think.
But anyway, on this,
I have a
Yes,
question on
Stuart.
this, 'cause it's not really an issue that I'm very familiar with. Is there any pattern to what we're seeing? It's very vague. We see this happening with buses that are south of 34th Street. Is this an issue that's a northern Manhattan problem? Is this a midtown problem?
It's a
Are these-
long
this-
bus
are they-
run problem.
This is too general.
This has occurred everywhere.
Is this with articulated buses only?
Can I,
Is this with regulated-
None of
I'm
these
the one who
routes are
brought this up.
articulated.
That's, okay,
Can I
so,
answer your
we're
question?
getting-
Can I
Sure,
answer?
sure.
Okay, I'm the one who brought this up like 6 months ago or more, and it was brought to my
It's in
attention
many community
by the
boards.
72nd Street neighborhood. So anyways, whatever it is, the problem is that they're going east, west, and west, east. The service has is cut more and more. People are then using other means of transportation, which means that the ridership numbers go down. It is all over, at least the borough of Manhattan. That I can tell you. It's uptown, it's been brought to.
But Andrew is saying it's not on the articulated.
These are not articulated
These
routes.
are not the only buses the only east-west buses that have the artics are those that have become SBS buses. So this does not
These are
apply
not SBS
anymore.
buses.
This does not apply to 79th Street or 86th Street or now, I guess, 23rd Street is.
It's an
the
SBS.
latest. Is an SBS. But all of the other cross
96th Street.
66, 77.
And I got it.
And Stuart,
So I
one of
think
the
we
other
really need to
mitigating
be more
factors is that
specific.
above 63rd Street,
Yeah.
there is no crosstown subway service, which you do have below 63rd Street. This is your only means.
Well, that's why I meant, that's why,
Yes.
because it just.
And in northern
It could be
Manhattan, there's no crosstown buses
These-
except ones
the
going
Bronx.
to the Bronx.
Right.
And that's the point, meaning I think it's short on saying what the real impact would be.
It was
And I
done.
think we need to also say that we're not talking about the SBS. bus.
No, because that is their excuse.
Well, SBS
Because
routes
when-
have
excuse me.
increased, so
And
you wouldn't.
Andrew, when I first brought this to the attention, we did not have either 86th Street and 79th Street as SBS terminals. We don't want to limit it because who knows that their excuse, and there has been a lot of concern by residents on both the east side and the west side about 79th and 86th Street returning to SBS streets.
Then I still think you need
So I
something
think, I know,
more about the impact.
no, I would say that it has to be very, very vague the way it is, because otherwise the powers that be, will come up with other solutions which will not suffice for the people who
Well,
live
Stuart is
in-
raising a good point, and there is one addition that we should probably make to this, which is to emphasize these are non-SBS routes, because where there have been SBS routes, and the bus gets moved faster, and you actually have painted bus lanes and all board door boarding, the service levels have actually gone up. So it's clear that we should make.
But it's the other point that you made, that north of 63rd Street,
no crosstown subway.
The Manhattan residents don't have the same options. So it's
No,
more impactful.
Yes.
Below, a
But
lot
there
of
have been-
people do not take advantage of and still don't know about going across on 63rd Street and think that they have to go down to 42nd Street. And there are people who are below 42nd Street who don't realize that there are other trains. And then there is also the situation of a lot of, I hate to keep on bringing up senior citizens, but since I am one, there are a lot of people who will not take the subway to go across town no matter what. And so it needs to be all over the borough of Manhattan. I can tell you this is brought to my attention all the time.
All right, let's, we have our speakers here and they're waiting and we have to move to
Do
them.
we
So
vote on this?
we certainly can.
Okay, can I ask, I want to do this, I asked for a vote on the resolution with the addition that Stuart has proposed about saying that, though I was not, I mean, I don't know, actually, I asked for this resolution to be voted on as is, because I think putting in about the SBS just confuses the issue, and then that will give them another alternative, which is not acceptable to a lot of people. Stuart, you have no idea what we went through with 79th Street and 86th Street, please. So I asked.
What about the Stewart's recommended addition of saying, above 63rd Street, there are no other options?
Because to a lot of people, there are no options below 63rd Street. People who will not take a subway across and only have the bus to go across town, okay? Believe me, Stuart doesn't live in Manhattan.
It has been an issue on other parts of Manhattan,
Yes,
that
it has
with
been.
reductions.
I would, okay, I
Well,
move,
8th Street crosstown
okay,
was a
I
prime
move that
example.
we adopt this resolution as written. Okay?
Is there a second? Not hearing one. Who would like to propose a change in language so that this resolution can go forward?
Well, maybe we should find out what people are, will people vote on it? If there's a change in language, then I will add Stuart's language.
So those that are not voting, do you have an opinion on this?
Me?
I feel as though it's a, it does not address the problem that so many of us have, where when the bus isn't running, they get onto the one train or
That's a different
something.
subject, though.
Because, no, excuse me, but that's why we're standing there and waiting. Well, how far is the crosstown?
This is a schedule issue that this resolution addresses, as opposed to short turns or a gap in service due to traffic or what have you. But, I'm open, let's hear, we do have to go to our speakers.
May I make another proposal?
Sure.
Okay. I propose that we table this until the next meeting, and at the next meeting, we also have, with Edith working with you, just like I did on this one, on a separate resolution dealing with north-south and end of the line and all of the
Short
other
turns.
issues that she.
Which are all mentioned
No,
in here,
no, but
short-term
can we-
construction, etc.
It's two separate issues.
Excuse me, Trudy, my point is, this lists
Yeah.
the turn in before completing their route. Less predictable service resulting from traffic, construction, and other factors slowing buses that also affect ridership. Those are the exact issues.
Okay, but this.
Okay, so there's a move to table this. Is there a second? There's a second.
Because there's more to it, and.
Okay,
and
then
we don't have-
we'll work on this,
I don't see a problem.
the
Either
next one.
as, well,
Yeah, I
may
think it
I
should be
make two
different.
suggestions? Either, working with you, either as a separate resolution dealing with north-south, even if it's the same issues, there are two different lines, so that, or having
Two
an
lines.
all-inclusive resolution, okay?
Okay,
That's my
Thank you.
suggestion, I'd like that reflected in the minutes,
Okay.
okay?
we're gonna move to our speaker, John.
Wait, no, we have to vote on tabling it?
No,
I seconded it.
No.
I don't think that's,
I seconded it
Yes,
for the
you
record.
do. I think you do.
Yeah, you do have to vote on it.
excuse me, I did second it for the record. It did.
Right, but
I
it needs
move
to
that
have a
we
vote.
table
There's
it.
a
You
vote to
seconded it.
table.
All in favor of tabling? Done. So it's a pleasure to introduce John Anjarami. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, who's Assistant Chief Mechanical Officer for New York City Transit Department of Subways. We're going to talk about NDBF, what direction it's going, maybe by car type. And John Santamaria is also here.
Yes.
Okay,
Good afternoon, everybody.
sorry to keep you.
After what? Well, we definitely enjoyed your discussion and your forum.
It helps me running the maintenance department to listen here. I'm an engineer by trade, but to hear the other side makes it helpful to step outside of the science aspect and hear what the riders think. Has to come into my strength.
And we know that you don't speak just personally, but you speak on behalf of your friends and your family and your neighbors to see exactly what your complaints, what your concerns are about this. So it was very insightful.
Gentlemen, can I ask you to speak up?
Sure.
There's a fan blowing in here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a little tough.
So my name is John Anjarami, I'm Assistant Chief Mechanical Officer for the Division of Car Equipment. Responsible for operations support, production planning. Division of Car Equipment is responsible for the maintenance, repairs of all our subway cars, the 6,400 subway cars we have, passenger service. I've been with the Transit Authority for 37 years. I started in 1980 as a college aide. I have a few more years to go. I'm enjoying what I do. I'm enjoying working for Transit. It's been very good to me, my family. So I enjoy my job. I enjoy what I do. And glad to be here. Here with one of my colleagues, John Santamaria, who's in charge of engineering.
So I'm the Assistant Chief Mechanical Officer of Car Equipment Engineering. My responsibility is to maintain the fleet, make sure test procedures, maintenance procedures, keeping the current fleet in a state of good repair, working with John's group, in addition to procuring new vehicles of any type, not only passenger carrying vehicles, that also includes work vehicles, locomotives, vacuum trains and such. So my department has to make sure that we address maintaining the fleet, procedures are up to date, the maintenance practices in the field are up to date, anything that changes in the design, whether it's obsolescence, whether it's a redesign due to a new vendor or a new product, that falls under my roof. I'm responsible for making sure that the field can maintain it and we can support the life of the car. Wanted to start this off and feel free at any point, just for those that may not have a history. We're going to talk about the reliability and the performance metrics. First of all, probably all know this, but we'll talk about the fleet and give you a quick snapshot. I'm sure you all know this. From what I hear, from what I see, most of you are very well educated in terms of our fleet, but if you don't mind, I'll spend a minute or two just going over the different types of fleet. Then we'll go over reliability, performance metrics, and the car maintenance programs that exist, as well as the challenges being faced. As John mentioned, our fleet size is just over 6,400 cars, and it's comprised of an A division and B division. The quantities are cited there in a brief history for the A division. It began operation in 1904. The A division is operated on the numbered lines, 1 through 7 in the show. And this is important to see that, and we'll talk about this later, the car length and the car width is smaller than that of the B division. Clearances and curbs are more narrow and short than the B division. The B division, consisting of over 3,500 cars, began at BMT in 1915 and the IND in 1932. These are operated on the lettered lines. And these car lengths, the cars are over 24 feet longer, they're roughly a foot and a half wider. What's important to note is B division cars cannot operate in the A division due to the tunnel restrictions of the smaller car. So when we buy work vehicles, just as a point of note, we buy locomotives, vacuum trains, they have to be designed to meet the A division physical limitations. This way they can work throughout the system. So a B division car cannot work in the A division. actually would get stuck going through certain turns. So these dimensions are restricted, as I mentioned, to tunnels and comply to what we call the LLCC, the limiting line of clearance for the A and B division. For short, what we've imposed is we call the cars, we break them up into two categories. Pre-2000 delivery cars, we call them the legacy fleet, and we're calling the millennium cars anything delivered past 2000, just to create a line of demarcation. I'll briefly go through this. I think you guys, unless you want me to really go into detail, this is just snapshots starting with legacy cars. In age, and Andrew, of course, this is
Everybody's favorite is the R32.
And the 42.
So basically, there's your fleet size, the years built, and in red, the useful life. Who built the car and the passenger capacity, seating, and standing. I'm not going to go through each one. You can see it as clear as day. Right. So, you know, we use this in
Some of us can tell them on site.
Oh, absolutely. I apologize. We continue on, the A division, you have 62, 62A, going back to the B division, 68. Now, these are in order of age. So as we move down, theoretically, this is the order in which they should be replaced.
If you go a little slower, I want to take some notes.
I apologize.
Not
Want to
much slower,
Go
just a
back?
little bit. No, it's good.
Well,
So
I
the
mean, excuse me,
Yes.
we can actually, through Bill, get copies of this.
Okay.
So you don't have to write it.
Yeah, we'll get a
We're
copy.
able to.
Yeah, he gives the PowerPoint to the office, they
It's
can
on,
print
you
it.
know,
No problem.
we're required by the state to videotape everything, so it's.
And anything, just stop me if you have
So it's
questions.
done,
You have questions, just stop me. So the 68A is the B division, that's the last of the legacy fleet. It too has a useful life of 2029, and will be in place at some point to work on its replacement. Some simple facts with our legacy fleet. They operate on DC propulsion, so the actual motors that exist in every truck is a DC motor. To keep it simple, it's less controllable as to nowadays, and I'll go into what the millennium cars is. There's no existing subsystem network. Besides a PA system, a public address, and signs, there is no computerized network. It's
But
very
we have a
simple.
conversational seat.
Yes, they do. We don't have, these vehicles don't have any onboard monitoring and diagnostic system. We'll go into that in more detail.
You know, when they're done, I think Andrew should have a conversational seat to put in his living room.
We can arrange that,
Yes,
we can
yes,
make that.
we can do that.
I'll take that too, in my house.
Do I have room in my living room?
And the other thing with these cars
room
is
in
that
the
there's
car.
minimal electronic systems. So the Millennium cars begin with the R142A, which was delivered in 2000 and ongoing, and the R142, 142A. The R188, which is an offshoot of the R142A, it's self-explanatory. The R143 dedicated to the L line. The R160, the queen of the fleet, as I like to call it. You know, it is a
The best performing cars.
stupendous.
R140.
The 160.
Who was that manufacturer, Al?
It was a combination, it was a joint venture between Alstom and Kawasaki, so they call themselves All-Scout for the state of
Also,
together again?
future, never know, can't discuss that.
what,
Alstom and Kawasaki.
I'm
And
familiar
where do
with
they run?
Kawasaki, what is, excuse me, I'm familiar with Kawasaki, what is Alstom? I've never heard of it.
Alstom is a major car manufacturer and propulsion provider, very large in Europe. They have a plant in Cornell, New York.
Oh,
Very
okay.
large manufacturer.
Have we used them for anything else or just for this hybrid?
They were part of this venture to build the cars, but we also used them in our R142 propulsion system. They delivered all the propulsion controls on the R142 system.
Didn't they do some of the R68s?
You'll have to look that up, Andrew. Now you tested that.
That's what I heard.
What is it? Is it engineering? Is it durability? What makes it so wonderful.
In my own opinion,
Yeah.
it's lessons learned from all the legacy, from the Millennium cars. As they were delivered, we became more and more educated. Our technical specs for future procurements became more and more detailed. And you'll see that as we go along, past the 160, that's why the R188, which came after the 160, has a wonderful mean distance between failure. We'll go into that later. Our specs, our requirements to the vendors are becoming better and better.
Who did the 188? Oh, well, we'll see that.
Well, that was on the previous page, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
Kawasaki.
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 Yeah, I'm sorry.
So Kawasaki learned from their joint venture with Alston and then just did it themselves?
They learned, but we imposed it in the next set of technical specs. I'm not gonna assume that just because they learned that they're gonna do it, so I forced it, put it in our spec.
And so
You
then they
shall.
went- And then they went off on their own again, basically.
These are business decisions, yeah.
Okay.
And the R179, soon to be hitting the streets. As a matter of fact, within the next 2 weeks, the first train will be in revenue service undergoing its 30-day test.
Where,
Subsequently following that 30-day test.
where will it be in?
Right.
I know, I've seen it, I live on the Brian Place.
That's ironic considering that they're replacing the 32s and 42s. You would think you would test it on one of those lines.
It will be. It's beginning its test there, utilize the availability of track. And they'll go through a 30-day test in revenue service, followed by, as the test commences and it's completed, more trains will be coming on. It's a practice we use to ensure it's performing within its specified parameters and meeting all the safety requirements.
Have you ever looked at the issue of the poles, particularly on the Lexington and the 123, where, I mean, for example, to get off at Bowling Green, I get on at Fulton and I have to go across the car. And there's a pole. And there's another pole. And if there's a baby carriage or a bicycle or anything, I'm on my way to Brooklyn. And that's a problem that we've been complaining about in the wheelchair community for a long time.
So, if I could attempt to answer that, obviously when the cars were purchased, there was some intent on pole location, seat layout. Since then, our operations planning department utilizes a lot of software modeling. We have a couple of pilots underway right now where poles are either removed, shifted where possible. Some of those poles fall into structural places where they can't just be removed. So we have a few pilots underway, and operations planning is working with their modeling to look at passenger flow and ease. And I can't comment on where that lies, but they're looking at a couple of
Okay.
options.
So the last one accepted was the R16.
R188, actually, in terms of timing. This is the, so the R1, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. So the R211, I can't talk about this in too much detail. It's an open procurement. It's currently under negotiations. I can tell you some things about it. You know, we're currently discussing it with car builders, soon to be awarded. I can't go into too much detail. It will also include the first open gangway train to be delivered and tested as part of this procurement.
It's
Open
showtime
gangway,
for us.
open
I
ends,
love
you
that.
can see through, you know.
As well as a replacement for the cars in Staten Island.
Right, and 75 Staten Island cars will be replaced as well.
I don't believe it.
Oh, you disbeliever.
You don't believe the Staten Island?
You don't believe it.
Because the only thing they have
He's
here
from
is
Staten Island.
We've already had one poll. That's my honor.
So is it the R179 or the R211 that is going to have the niche next to the doors so that people will be encouraged to not stand in front of the doors?
The R211.
But the 179s will not?
They have the same niche size that's in the 160. I just don't know what the difference is, but it follows the 160 design, the 179.
Because, you know, as laudable as the intent of the open gangway cars and what some people are pushing for platform doors and all of that stuff, if there's still some, you know what, standing in front of the
Absolutely.
doorway.
Yes.
So we took that into consideration, and again, the technical spec for the 211 was re-written. Wider doors, wider niches to try to avoid the congestion in the
At
front.
the door.
Have a question?
I'm sorry, question?
Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I'm reminded that not infrequently, I'm 6 foot one, I get up out of the seat and I bump my head on the horizontal grab bar, so would you consider going back to strap hanging? That's,
I am going to look into the reasoning, and this becomes an operations planning. They look at the 95th to 5 percentile to look at the average height. Good point. I'll have to get back to you in terms of what research has been done. How did we migrate from strap hanging to poles? I'd have to find out.
Russian awful, appreciate it.
On behalf of short people, also, it's on behalf of tall people. That this has been an issue for a long time, about not being able to reach even where the lower upper bar, that you have to somehow work, if you can't get a seat, work your way over to a pole in order to have some kind of, not fall flat on your face.
Now, one of the things you'll see in the R211 are double stanchion poles, and potentially triple stanchion poles. These are all going to be tested as well.
What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
Right now, rather than just one pole,
Yeah.
it comes down and splits into 2 or 3.
Oh, so that more people can hold on to
A
it.
conversational pole, I'll show you.
I would be concerned, not having seen it and the dimensional layout, I would be concerned about the issue of people like myself or short people like Trudy getting past it and not hitting, etc. I mean, as it is now, I am frequently shoved into poles.
Now, that pole
When
location,
people come in to the car behind me and just, it's the crush movement. It's a problem, a real tremendous problem for manual chair users because blocks on manual chairs are jokes.
so the height of the
Where does
actual
it, yeah,
pole and
yeah.
its location has to meet the ADA requirements, that 48-inch requirement for a wheelchair to swing around, it all has to adhere.
Okay,
And even where that division comes through is designed in such a way to minimize problems with flow. So it may not be toward the door, that outward bend. It'll be on the other side. These are all being tested.
at right angle.
So in light of these comments, is there any opportunity before the floor plan is frozen in whatever it's frozen in, that riders would have an opportunity to comment?
Perfect segue. Perfect. So, very soon, I just cannot give you a date, Andrew. We have a mock-up built, a 30-foot mock-up.
Oh, the one that's hiding
No, we
behind-
can't tell you where it is.
I know.
We already know where it is. I'm sorry to tell you, but we already knew.
We have a half-train, 30-foot mock-up.
We're all gonna be going to Inwood to
No.
play on it.
No,
Or wherever.
Javits beyond Javits.
Right.
Hudson Yard Station.
So there's a 30-foot mock-up, and there's also a mock-up of the open gangway area. It will be opened at some point for public outreach to gather comments, and I just don't know when.
How does the open game plank work?
Gangway.
Game, sorry. People off the
Those are not
boat.
pirate trains.
Work with curves.
There lies the challenge, and what the vendors, there are 2 or 3 main suppliers of open gangway systems across the world. And what they've done, the potential vendors have come on our system, we hooked up a test jig, I'll call it, on the R143 on the L line. They ran through the system, we gave them the worst case scenarios. They gathered all this data, we put in their design model to come up with the widest gangway possible to address our curve radius limitations. So what I mean by that, I'm sorry, if it was a straight run, if we never had to make a curve, you could make the open gangway 11 feet
Right.
wide. Right. So because of the curves, their program would say, well, the best case I could make it, I'm just making this up, 4.5 feet wide.
What happens if, right now, car doors don't work? The whole train has to go out of service and stay out of service if one element of it breaks down?
Which car doors are you referring to?
Well, if, like, right now,
Isolated cars.
yeah, how do you isolate a car?
Okay.
in an open day.
In, the technical spec calls for the means. We don't know yet because it's in an open procurement. We're asking for the car builder to give us the means to isolate the car.
Oh, okay.
So
it's
sort
up
of
to them
several
to
ideas.
design, engineer.
It's gonna be engineered.
Well, currently, if only one of the two doors is opening, the attitude seems to be, well, go screw yourself.
Or
You're going to the next station.
Yeah.
If only one leaf opens, the car is designed, the design is such a way that we can still provide service to passengers. Rather than take the train out of service, one leaf will open until the car can get to the terminal station and be taken out of service.
You know, I mean, I have seen one leaf open like the entire A run. And knowing, you know, I'm gonna be going up to 207th Street. Because I'm not gonna be getting off it.
So
I
typically,
mean, the issue is, the bottom line is, the train man can come out, open that little box, and then does something under the seat, and the other door will open. I have seen this stuff
I can't answer.
on the LIRR and in the subway.
Without the particulars of that situation, honestly, I can't answer the reason why one half of the doors taken out of service. I understand that, I understand.
To add that, I've seen it sometimes on the H rock shuttles, and I can tell you, they're in worse shape, but then there was one time they had to discharge the train because it was not just one door, it was like the next door, set of doors.
Right, it can be the entire side.
Exactly. And then lately, you see them saying, ladies and gentlemen, this train is going out of service, they discharged the whole train. And then they warned the next train behind saying, be advised that you will be taking their customers. And the other thing I will say is, I don't think sometimes when they're in the yards, and I specify to the Rockaway Parkway, it's actually 82 or 6, they don't really test the doors sometimes. And I think you need to watch what they need to really check those screens before they go into service more frequently. And I agree with Edith because I'm seeing more dangerous on the R46, on the A and R.
You're the chair.
I mean, you know,
You're the chair.
Folks, let's let them.
Well, everybody else was talking, I'm just following through.
Sure.
For the Staten Island Railway cars, will there be any special features on those cars?
The features for Staten Island will incorporate the uniqueness, there's very little in this. Separate control of doors, because there are certain platforms where not all doors can open.
Right. What I was really getting at is they get built up to federal railway
They have to,
standards.
so they have to.
Okay. Because those are hard.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great.
More importantly, this is John's world, and we have to work together. This is some fun, I call them fun facts, but, you know, the average fleet age right now is 22.8 years, you know.
wow.
16% of the fleet is over 40 years old. The average life-to-date mileage per car is in excess of 1.1 million miles. And Andrew's aware of this, the R42 fleet